The cemetery sat quiet at sunrise. A blanket of dew covered the grass, and the world still held its breath before the hum of the day began. At the far edge of the grounds, under a willow tree that leaned gently toward the earth, stood a man, tall, thin, dressed in a neat gray coat, a faded fedora on his head, and a bouquet of daisies in his trembling hands. His name was Mr. Horace Willis, 83 years old, a retired jazz musician, a war veteran, a grandfather of 4, and a man in love with his wife, even after she'd been gone for 6 years. Every morning, without fail, Mr. Willis walked 2 miles to the cemetery. Rain, snow, sun, it didn't matter. He came with flowers, sat by her stone, and talked to her like she had never left. He'd say things like, "Clara, remember when you wore that red dress to my concert and made me forget every note I was supposed to play?" Or, "The apple tree out front is blooming again, just like it did the day we met." People who passed by began to recognize him. Some nodded politely. Others paused, moved by the quiet devotion of an old man and a love story that hadn't ended with death. But one person saw something more. A little girl, 7 years old, freckles across her nose, messy ponytail. She walked by every morning, holding her mother's hand on the way to school. And every day, she glanced at Mr. Willis, curious, quiet, watching, until one morning she let go of her mother's hand, walked to the grave, and slipped a folded piece of paper beneath the bouquet. Then she turned and ran. Mr. Willis picked it up, unfolded it slowly, and read 6 simple words written in crayon. "I think she still hears you." Mr. Willis stared at the note in his hand, unsure whether to smile or cry. He looked up, but the little girl was already down the path, skipping to catch up with her mother. He folded the paper neatly and placed it in his coat pocket, right next to a black and white photo of his wife, Clara, the same one he'd carried every day since her funeral. That night, as he sat in his quiet kitchen, he pulled out the note again. He read it slowly, out loud. "I think she still hears you." The words echoed in the room. He hadn't expected anyone to notice him, let alone a child. He was used to blending into the background, a ghost in the park, a gentle nod at the grocery store. But this little girl had seen him, and somehow she'd understood something that even grown-ups often missed, that love doesn't die, and neither does connection. The next morning, Mr. Willis brought an extra flower, a single daisy wrapped in tissue, and placed it on the stone beside Clara's usual bouquet. Tucked underneath was a note of his own, scribbled in careful cursive. "Thank you for your kind words. Yes, I believe she does too." When the little girl and her mother walked by, she paused again. This time, her mom noticed. "Sweetie, what are you doing?" The girl pointed. "He left me a note." Her mother squinted. "You know him?" The girl shrugged. "Not really, but I think he's lonely." Her mother didn't answer at first. Then, after a beat, she gently said, "Come on, let's say hello." They approached slowly, and Mr. Willis stood up with grace. He tipped his hat. "Good morning, ladies." The girl beamed. "I'm Emily." Mr. Willis smiled. "Miss Emily, it's a pleasure. This is my mom," she said, pointing. "Her name's Rachel." Rachel extended her hand. "Hi, I hope it's okay. She's been talking about you, huh? She leaves notes everywhere. But this one was different." Mr. Willis chuckled softly. That one went straight to the heart. They talked for a few minutes about Clara, about Emily's favorite color, orange, and about music, which Emily had just started learning at school. Then before leaving, Emily looked up and asked, "Can I come say hi to her again tomorrow?" Mr. Willis nodded. Of course, Clara would like that. From that day on, a quiet friendship began to bloom between a man holding on to memory and a child just beginning to understand the power of love. Days turned into weeks, and the cemetery, once a place of silence, now held laughter. Not loud laughter, not the kind that disrupted the stillness, but gentle giggles and quiet stories exchanged over fresh flowers. Emily began stopping by every morning with Mr. Willis before school. Her mother, Rachel, watched from a distance, always giving them a respectful space. Emily would kneel beside Clara's grave and tell her about spelling tests, new friends, or what her dog Tilly had chewed up that week. Sometimes she'd ask questions. What was her favorite song? Did she like chocolate cake like Medea? Was she ever scared? Mr. Willis answered each one, like Clara herself was listening. She loved jazz, especially when I played it for her on rainy afternoons. She made the best chocolate cake you've ever tasted, and she always licked the spoon. And yes, she was scared sometimes, but we faced it together. Emily started bringing little gifts, a pebble shaped like a heart, a drawing of Clara and Mr. Willis, a sunflower sticker. Mr. Willis kept them all. One morning he brought his old portable record player. He carefully set it beside the grave, placed a dusty vinyl on the turntable, and as the soft crackle filled the air, a smooth trumpet melody began to play a tune he once wrote for Clara in 1964. This was our song, he told Emily. They sat in silence, letting the music drift through the willow branches. Emily closed her eyes, swaying. Even Rachel, leaning against a tree in the distance, wiped a tear from her cheek. When the song ended, Emily whispered, "She must have loved you so much." Mr. Willis's voice cracked as he replied, "She still does, just from somewhere higher now." Later that evening, Rachel approached Mr. Willis. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving Emily this, for showing her that love is more than flowers and fairy tales." Mr. Willis smiled. "She gave me something too. She reminded me I'm not alone." As autumn leaves painted the cemetery gold and crimson, Mr. Willis and Emily's morning visits became a quiet ritual in the neighborhood. It wasn't long before others noticed. A young groundskeeper named Louise began leaving extra fresh water at the cemetery gate. Knowing Mr. Willis liked to keep Clara's flowers fresh, an elderly couple who walked their dog every morning started arriving a little earlier just to hear Mr. Willis share a new story with Emily. Even the local paper caught wind of it. One crisp morning, a reporter stopped by with a notebook and a gentle smile. "I've heard about a little girl and an old man who meet at a graveyard every day," she said. "Would you mind telling me why?" Mr. Willis looked at Emily, who nodded proudly. And so he did. He talked about Clara, about their first dance, their first fight, the night he asked her to marry him under a street lamp because he couldn't afford a ring yet. He talked about the mornings without her, how silence became unbearable, until a little girl left a note that cracked the loneliness wide open. The article ran the next Sunday, titled, "A Love Story Lives on Lessons from the Willow Tree." The story touched more hearts than anyone expected. People began visiting Clara's grave. Some brought flowers. Others left notes of their own stories of loss, healing, or simply hope. One letter read, "I lost my husband last year. I thought the world had forgotten us. Thank you for reminding me love still matters." Suddenly, Clara's resting place became more than just a grave. It became a place of connection, of renewal, of proof that grief, when shared, could blossom into something gentle and healing. Emily, though just 7, carried it all with grace. One morning, as they sat quietly by the grave, she said, "Do you think she's proud of you?" Mr. Willis smiled. "I think she's proud of us." Winter rolled in, gently dusting the cemetery in soft frost. But the cold didn't stop the visits. Mr. Willis, bundled in his thick coat and scarf, still clutching fresh flowers in his gloved hands. Emily now wore earmuffs and fuzzy boots, but her smile stayed the same. "Want me to help clean the snow off her stone today?" she asked one morning. "Of course," Mr. Willis replied, handing her a soft brush he always kept in his coat pocket. The two of them worked side by side, in the silence of morning, clearing snow-setting flowers and playing Clara's favorite songs on the tiny speaker Mr. Willis had upgraded from his old record player. "Someday," Emily said suddenly, I want to love someone like you loved Clara." Mr. Willis stopped brushing and looked at her, this child who had become his morning light. "You already do, sweetheart," he said. "You love with your whole heart." "That's rare." Rachel, standing off to the side, smiled through misty eyes. She had watched her daughter grow in ways school books never could have taught. Patience, compassion, reverence for memory. On Saturday, instead of just visiting, Emily asked if she could bring something. The next morning she arrived with a small notebook. "I made this for her," she said, placing it gently by Clara's headstone. Inside were drawings of Clara with angel wings of daisies, of Mr. Willis playing trumpet under a tree. "I call it Clara's heaven book," she said proudly. Mr. Willis was speechless. He turned away to hide his tears, but Emily saw. "Are you okay?" she asked, touching his hand. He nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know love could still surprise me." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the willow branches above them. Mr. Willis glanced upward and smiled. Clara always said, "The smallest hearts often carry the biggest light." The following week brought a surprise that neither Mr. Willis nor Emily expected. Rachel approached Mr. Willis one morning, after Emily had run ahead to tidy Clara's headstone. "I hope this isn't too forward," Rachel began, "but Emily's school is doing a presentation on people who inspire us. She wants to talk about you." Mr. Willis blinked. "Me?" Rachel nodded. "She calls you her real-life storybook. She says you taught her that love isn't just for fairy tales. It's something you choose to keep alive." Mr. Willis looked down at the cane in his hand, at the worn shoes he walked in every day, and chuckled. "Well, I reckon I've been called a lot of things, but never that." Rachel smiled. "Would you come speak to her class? Just a few minutes, share about Clara." The thought made him nervous. He hadn't spoken in front of a group in years, not since Clara's memorial, when he could barely get the words out. But Emily's eyes were filled with hope when she asked him again that evening. So he said yes. The classroom was filled with second graders, sitting cross-legged on a colorful carpet, wide-eyed as Mr. Willis took a seat in the reading chair. Emily introduced him proudly. "This is Mr. Willis. He visits his wife every day, even though she's in heaven. He brings her flowers and music and love." He cleared his throat, voice steady, but full of feeling. "I was married to Clara for 58 years. Every morning I talk to her like she's still with me. Because in some ways, she is." The kids leaned in, completely still. "She taught me that love is about showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when they're gone." After he finished, there wasn't a dry eye among the teachers, and the kids, they clapped, loud and full of joy. As he left the classroom, one little boy tugged his sleeve. "My grandpa passed away. Do you think if I talk to him, he'll hear me too?" Mr. Willis knelt and smiled. "With your whole heart, son. He'll hear every word." That night, Emily gave him a hug tighter than usual. "You were amazing," she whispered. "Clara would be so proud." He didn't reply, just placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "So am I." Spring arrived quietly. The willow tree by Clara's grave blossomed with soft green, and the cemetery came back to life with birdsong and blooms. Daisies returned to the florists, and Mr. Willis once again brought Clara her favorites, white petals wrapped in brown paper tied with twine. But something else was blooming too. The story of Mr. Willis and Emily, once just a quiet moment between two souls, had started spreading far beyond their small town. The school presentation had been recorded by a teacher and with permission posted online. The video went viral. Within days, thousands of comments poured in. "This is the most beautiful thing I've seen all year. Proof that love never dies. We need more Mr. Willis and Emily's in this world." People began visiting the cemetery from other neighborhoods. Some left notes of their own. Others brought flowers not just for Clara, but for loved ones they had once stopped visiting. Mr. Willis was overwhelmed. He never expected to become a symbol, but he took it with quiet grace. One afternoon, a young man in his 20s approached the grave carrying a framed picture of his mom. He spotted Mr. Willis and paused. "I haven't been back here in 3 years," the man said softly. "But I saw your video, and I thought maybe it's not too late." Mr. Willis simply nodded. It's never too late to remember someone with love. The man knelt at his mother's grave and wept. Later that evening, Emily said, "Clara's still helping people, isn't she?" Mr. Willis looked out over the rows of graves where strangers were leaving flowers, hugging, whispering to the sky. "Yes," he said. "She always had a way of making people feel seen." Emily tilted her head. "Just like you do." And in that moment, Mr. Willis realized something. This wasn't just about grief anymore. It was about legacy, about connection, about what happens when love outlives us and still finds new ways to grow. 1 year to the day since Emily had first left that note, Mr. Willis arrived at the cemetery carrying 2 bouquets, one for Clara and one for Emily. She was waiting by the grave, dressed in a soft yellow dress, holding a small white envelope. "I wrote her another note," she said, handing it to him. "Do you want to read it together?" Mr. Willis nodded, unfolding the envelope gently. Inside, in careful handwriting, it read, "Dear Clara, thank you for loving Mr. Willis so much. He loves you so big that it helped me understand what love really means. I'll keep talking to you, even when I'm big. Love, Emily." Tears filled his eyes. "You gave her the best gift anyone ever could," he whispered. Emily smiled. "You did too." They sat in silence beneath the willow tree, the sun warming the earth around them. All around the cemetery, tiny splashes of color dotted other headstone signs that people had started coming, remembering, reconnecting. Clara's grave was no longer just a resting place. It had become a starting point for healing, for love, for friendship that crossed generations and backgrounds, and even life and death. As the wind rustled the tree above them, Emily looked up and asked, "Do you think she knows how many people she's helped?" Mr. Willis smiled softly. "Oh yes, Clara always knew how to light up a room, even this one." And with that, he took Emily's hand, and they walked down the path together, one old soul and one young heart, forever bound by 6 words scribbled in crayon. I think she still hears you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful and emotional stories that remind us love never dies. Comment below, what's one memory of a loved one you'll never forget? And we'll see you in the next video, where even the smallest moments become the ones that stay with us forever. Until then, keep loving out loud.